Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CLSR. And I'm your host, the counselor. And today we're going to be talking about addictions, part 3. We've covered some great material, very informative stuff that we've been discussing lately as far as addictions go. It's quite complex. Treatments vary, as we've spoken about. However, we're going to talk a little bit about the side of addictions that many of us do not talk about, like the impact on children and trying to get children to understand addiction. How do you talk to them? How do you go about explaining what may be happening in the home as far as, excessive behavior, or substance use? What do you do? Right? Because you can't, like many people do, ignore them because people, when they're caught up in their addictions, a lot of times they're not really worried about what anyone else may feel, including children. However, if you do have children and you're not the substance abuse user and you have someone in your home that is, you need to make sure that the house could be chaotic. Family members may act normal. You know what I mean? However, it really impacts the children. And the research has shown that it has devastating long term effects when excessive substance use is out of control, and with all the behaviors and the energy that it takes on as far as the partner and just all the dynamics that are played out in the family when it comes to addiction. It's very, very challenging for adults. So you could imagine how it is for children. So you just got to make sure that when you do have children, there are ways that they can adopt some of this behavior. They can take on unusual amounts of family responsibility just because they're feeling so entrenched in it. They feel that it's something that's, they could be a part of. They might feel that they're partially responsible, that they want to own some of the parents, pain because what they're seeing is just devastating to them. So they might feel that they're kind of responsible and they might be required or asked to or feel obligated to take on more responsibility than normally they would. And you've seen it yourself. A lot of the kids they're trying their best to be perfect in every way just to please the parent or stay out of the way. They're trying to do everything that they can do to be perfect so that they're not disturbing or they're not feeling like they're at fault or they just want to be invisible. And it's no fault of their own. But are we understanding that? I think a lot of us have our selfish, needs. And when it comes to the children, sometimes it's overlooked. Not all times, but sometimes it is. And these children can become withdrawn and isolated just because of some of the substance use, this problem that it's inside the home. And of course, there's the aggression, acting out in other ways. So your child is not necessarily going to speak about this. This is something that they're not going to speak up to you and say, hey, listen, this is bothering me. They're going to be passive aggressive more than anything because they know it's extreme. And so they'll be acting out in certain cases, right? Because they don't know how to communicate or express the way they feel. So what do? They act out. And see, what happens is a lot of us, when we see the acting out, we're just responding to the acting out. We're not responding to the why. We don't want to look at the why. See, we have our lives and they have theirs. And rarely does it intersect on a common sense level. When you don't have an understanding, when you're dealing with your own issues as adults, those children are just there. And so they have, they're absorbing everything that goes on. So they're going to respond. And scary as it may seem, some might even turn to using substances themselves because of this that's going on. Right? You know what I mean? These children that are living within that environment, they've got a lot of pent up emotion. Right? They're living in a home where the substance use problem is just creating all kinds of stressors on them. These are children that could worry about things, be angry, be sad, fearful, uncertain, questioning themselves, questioning the situation, blaming. They might even resent the parent who's going through it because they're getting all the attention, and and they're not getting any attention, or they're being burdened, or they feel bad and they feel it's not right, not fair. They want to live their lives, but they feel that this person has, taken up that space. And then there comes a phase where they might go into rejection and quite possibly shame. And it is a shame. So we have to consider them. And you know what I mean? And they need to understand one thing. They need to know that things are going to be okay in some way. But in this situation, they're going from day to day, you know, hoping that there's another way. And as far as they're concerned, things are just not okay and they're taking on too much, right? They need to know, that things will be all right, you know. These feelings, they're very unnerving to them. They need to be able to reach out for help themselves and talk about their feelings. Have a healthy, caring person in their lives to help them sort things out. And you might have to be that person. You might see it across the family lines. However, those children need somebody to let them know it's going to be okay. And often, some parents are embroiled in this situation, sometimes considered very problematic mess. They don't, that's not what they're focused on. They're trying to cope themselves, right? So children are going to be very vulnerable at that stage, trying to cope in any way that they can. All the while being uncertain in the moves that they make just to get through, but wanting to be there, wanting to feel that they can fix it, and when they can't, they might feel helpless. And if they're not communicating with someone, this could be a drain on them. They could start really isolating themselves, and you don't really want that. You want to make sure that you're, at least if they're playing their roles, you're checking in. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, you got to let these kids express how they're feeling. First, they have to identify what are you going through. You got to talk to them. What are you going? How are you feeling about things? Let them tell you what's going on. Let them explain to you if they're scared. You know what I mean? If they're sad, and you got to be a good listener, and you got to let them know that there are other situations in families that may be similar to that situation. They got to realize that they are not responsible for this person's problem or the person's recovery, how they get through it. And they have to also be given the truth. You got to be genuine, and you got to let them know that it could be a very long and drawn out process, and you are going to go through the ups and downs. However, there'll be some comfort in knowing that you're going to go through those ups and downs together. That's what they need. And explaining the substance use problem can be very awkward. So you have to make sure that the information that you're giving is age appropriate. Okay, so if you're talking about preschool children, then you have to understand you got to use simple, short sentences, concrete information. Do not use technical language. Keep it as normal as possible. And those school age children, you know, they can handle a little bit more information than the younger ones. You know, they've had some information sessions at school, basic drug information, because they're in school. So they might post some questions at you, so you have to be ready to respond to them. But they're a little bit familiar with that information, but not as deep as you might give it to them. But you just got to have a clear conversation and keep it simple. And teenagers, you know what? They're pretty independent when it comes to understanding like general basic information. You know what I mean? Because of the programs that are offered in the schools. So the questions a lot of the professionals can even ask, or they could go to their guidance counselors or teachers. But they might want to discuss their own thoughts and feelings about what's going on. Things that might worry them besides what you might expect. You might think, oh, it's just this. They could have other worries or areas of their life that they're neglecting because they're engaged in this whole process of substance use. This addiction that a family member has. That is something that's going to be getting them off their norm. So we have to be mindful. We don't want those young people to be losing their lives and not getting social situations because the burden is too heavy at home. We got to let them maintain their relationships or some sort of life so that they can function because it's heavy, right? You got to let the children know that the family member has a problem with alcohol or drug use, and just reassure them, you know what I mean, that it's not their fault. They can't blame themselves. No matter what their behavior is, this is not their fault. And you have to repeatedly get that in their head because that's going to take some work. You got to support them and let them know it's a problem that we're working on, but it's definitely not your problem. You know what I mean? And it's not their responsibility to take care of the person with the substance use. We do, this is a family thing that people say. It's a family thing, right? This is what we do in the family. This is why it's always been. Well, that could be hard for some of them. So putting that responsibility on a young person is not really fair. It's not right. But they have to be told it's not the responsibility because they'll feel like they have their role to play. And it could be responsibility of taking care of the person in everything they do. From getting their driver's license to moving them around to appointments, that could still wear on a young person, right? So we have to make sure that it's a problem that got to be solved, but they can support, but it's not there to solve, right? So make sure you're encouraging them to do things that they normally do, like their routines, keeping up with their school, keeping up with their work, making sure that they have their life, and understanding it's a long process. So don't drop everything that they have going on for them. They've got to, in anything, if anything, you want to encourage them to keep doing well, and letting them know that that person that's going through is going to feel a lot better if they know that they're doing okay. See, it's just how you think about things, right? So just make sure you're telling them, keep your regular interests and your regular routines in check, right? And if you can, find something else that's going to keep you occupied. Or you take the initiative to help them, if you're the adult, to find a program, especially knowing that this is what may be occurring in the home, right? The substance use problem, right? Just make sure that they do have somebody beside yourself. Sometimes it's hard for the young people to talk through the parents because for a number of reasons. We can name 1,000 reasons. However, it can be challenging at times, right? For whether they're feeling insecure or they're going to be judged or whatever. There's a million. But the point is, um, it would really be important for us to find a trusted person that we know that our children could um, talk to every once in a while, just to know that maybe they don't have to go through us all the time, but they have somebody out there in their life that they can refer to or talk to, even if it's guidance counselor or teacher, or someone in the family that you trust. So, like just you could touch base with, make sure that they're okay. Because believe it or not, our young people still need to be checked in on. They really do. Even, a lot of people say, oh, no, no, I think today young people need to be checked in on. And the reason why is because I think there's a lot going on out there. We're on full steam ahead when it comes to the marketing and the sales, the competition, the internet. There's so many things going on. I think checking in is just a good thing. Nothing wrong with it. Shows that you care. That's the minimum you're going to get. Showing that you care about things. So just make sure you're aware of that. That's one of the jobs that you have to do. Because if you have a partner that has a substance use problem, now you just been told what your role is. Your role is to make sure that young person that's in that house is being taken care of. Not guessing and wondering and going, oh, it's too much for me, so I got to put it on this child or this young person. No, no. Be careful with that. So we got to balance that out, right? And if you, like I said, if it's too much for you and you're just passing it to your children, you know what time that is. That's time for you to go get some professional help to assist with your partner. That's a good indication. If you're putting too much pressure on your child over this situation, you got to know that you got to get there and get to the professionals and get that support and make sure that you're balancing it out for yourself. Because if you don't do that, you're going to be no good for the children. And the child's going to be no good. In the end, they're going to burn out. You're going to burn out. And then this guy beside you or whoever that is, You know what I mean? They're going to burn out too because you ain't going to be at your best. You ain't going to be as sharp as you normally are. And you're not going to want. You might start with the resentment phase. Yes, I probably did tell you, but there is a resentment phase. It's real, the resentment phase. And it comes when it comes to the strife, right? Too much on me, right? Taking away me. Hey, we all know there's a deadline. We all got a deadline, and we know we on time. Some of us don't know what time, when the time's gonna come, but we know we're on a deadline. And what that means is we got to enjoy and appreciate the life that we have. So you know what I mean? We got to make sure we balance ourselves to help people, because there is a thing called help yourself to a certain degree. I think sometimes when people lean on you, you push them a little bit, they push back instead of trying. And that's what you got to worry about. Make sure your partner's giving it their all, right? You know what I mean? Make sure they're giving it their all when you're giving it your all. That's balanced, that's fair, and that's how it is. Right? But have those expectations as hard as it's gonna be. You know what I'm saying? Please. And see, we gotta think about the children too, like what they're gonna be dealing with outside the home, right? Because you want to be able to talk to them about what they're going to say to their family, because they're not going to want other people to know that they have a problem in the home. Someone has a substance use problem, and so they're going to worry that they're going to be looked down upon negatively, over this problem. However, you do got to think about if there are peers around and they don't know, they can't help. Right? And it could be hard. So you got to talk to your child and give them the goods and say, look, there might be some people out there who might have the same situation going on as well, and they might have some ideas. But because of the pressure out there, a lot of them are afraid to do that. But you can be honest and say, look, you're going to have to be open as you can, but we'll have to discuss it to who you might be disclosing to. Just make sure you got a trustworthy friend who has good intentions and talk about it. Or make sure you're talking about it with somebody at school or, in the community that's familiar with it, right? But when it comes to friends, that is a personal choice, but you want to be able to let certain people know because maybe they have something that they could offer. I just think it's important as a family to come together to sit down and decide what you're going to do or what you're going to say as a family and have a honest discussion and make sure everyone is comfortable with this conversation. Some might have to express some of their discomfort, and maybe you'll still have to work around it, but it's still a conversation you want to have. So you just got to remember these things go in phases. Like the person who has a substance use problem, eventually, right, they will go and be successful in reaching their recovery goals, right? So once they reach recovery, they're going to be more susceptible to wanting to maybe communicate with the children. Maybe they were going through their changes and they had a breakdown in communication. However, this is a more stable time for them. So this is important for us to realize that once in this recovery stage, they do need to check with the children and have some discussions and reaffirm that relationship, right? Because the children are going to need to talk about their feelings, and they got to be accepted, and they got to get some time at some point. And at the recovery where the person may be stable, you just let them take their time, but just let them know that's something important for them to do. And as long as the children are aware that recovery is going to take some time, it's not going to be smooth, but they're working, right? It's a really great time for them to talk and to help them process, what's been going on, what they've experienced, and maybe let them know what would happen if this person relapses, because there is a big possibility that they might relapse. So explaining that long-term thinking to the young people is going to be very helpful, right? Understanding the ups and downs and what, say, hey, we're at this stage, but we got a ways to go still, and it's going to be a little bumpy. So let's stay tuned for this one. You got to give some reassurances out there. Most definitely. However, when I think of all these challenges that we have as human beings, like addictions, there's just so many things that people go through, and there's a lot of methodology to treatment and research and strategies that people try, and it's a whole gamut of things to consider. However, I want to say that one thing that I think we can't go without is the understanding that when it comes to any support and any care that we want to give to people, we think about the supports, we think about the medication, we think about professionals, the advice we're given, and all the ways that people could improve their situation. However, one thing I think what we need to consider is kindness. And how does kindness help everyone? Well, let's have a little understanding of kindness. You know, it's just, you got to think of kindness as a flower with many different petals, and one being the mind, body, and the health. You know, when how does this impact the mind, body, health in general? And that's with kindness improves your physical health and your mental health. And it really gives you a chance and a constant burst of energy. And it pushes back some of the illnesses and the negativity out there. And it could be so enlightening and increases your lifespan at least by 30 to 40%. It's just, it contributes to you, the way you feel. People want to exercise. It enhances your income level, your perspective. It's good for ethnicity, cultures of all people. It's just a sense of kindness. And some of these things simply, especially during these times of need, the kindness of people, just volunteering, increasing their longevity, no matter what's going on in someone's life. Just being that person that wants to perform some acts of kindness. It just releases oxytocins, that stuff that's just not good for you. It releases that, you know, and it just improves your physical health. It's just a wonderful way to be, and it's so good for you, showing, demonstrating, understanding, right? These acts of kindness and the benefits of it, right? You know, we need to benefit from acts of kindness. We need to give some kindness. We need to help others at the expense of our own health. We do. But with kindness, it's a lot easier, right? When we have a positive sense of self and a general caring, despite how hard someone's situation could be on us, despite the barriers that we're going to face, when we and always approach it with acts of kindness, it really helps. It can make the hardest people, soften somewhat, right? It's good for all states. You giving, you receiving, it's, your physical health, right? Improves, you know, it makes your mental health better when you're receiving help from people who are giving some kindness. There's few symptoms of depression and anxiety, and there's actually research that show there's lower rates of substance abuse disorders. You know, who on and this is that community that volunteers, right? And I think it does do wonders. I've seen it do wonders, even in my own family. Like family members, like my own mother, like she's done some wonderful volunteering in her life after she retired, and she kept it up. And it just gives her life and energy, and she's such a strong, wonderful woman. But you know, she's contributed more than her share, but it just gives her life. She sleeps good. She's done her part. She's contributing to society. And I think that's what kindness is. Kindness is understanding that we need to contribute to society where we can, right? Think about it. You know, you want to also understand like kindness comes through that community, right? There's treatment programs in the communities, and that's helpful for maintaining sobriety. That helps people stop with the alcohol and the drugs and get better when they spend some time with people, others, who are actually engaging in positivity and in getting those right decisions done for that person to help them get better. That's a sense of community, being in that community, just having that network of friends and family or some people that you work with in that community, just distributing that kindness and receiving and giving. It helps with the addiction, right? Because we know what addiction could do. It can break down relationships, it can destroy them and lives. People can suffer directly. You know, it could impact negatively upon the family. But being in a community, it could help you grow in many ways. You could give back. You could actually feel more in touch with your community, understanding that your needs aren't the only needs out there. But by you showing your appreciation, you see that working together, having a sense of community, what I mean, with people, sharing their kindness, volunteering and working and giving back, that's just a great thing. That helps being there for people, building a network of kind hearted, passionate people, to support the less fortunate, and get that connection going on where people start to feel like alive, right, before they're gone. That's what's important. Inspire kindness in others, benefit. It's such great benefit to the community. It's like paying it forward, people. It's like a phenomenon. You do it. You should do it. And especially in North America where everybody's crying about this and that, what they ain't got and what they want to get more of, they got to show that community and kindness. And I thank goodness because the one thing when you see that kindness, it's something that money can't buy, right? You can't buy when you have a family member who has someone sitting by their side supporting them through their days, their final days, whether it's a year, a month, or whatever. There ain't no amount of money for that. So somebody's sitting there by the supporting them, caring about them, letting them go out with ease. That's what people need to understand and appreciate. That's some real kindness, and you ain't buying that. And that's what we need to have. We need to keep. And we need to appreciate when we see it out there. Thank you is good, it's great. But the least you could do is demonstrate some kindness in society. Not judge, not point the finger. Too many of us are pointing the finger. But that community, come on, right? Think about it. So the community is wonderful, but there's that kindness throughout. Kindness improves overall health in general, and it can improve relationships and build communities, you know, over a lifespan. They contribute to successful sobriety for sure. You know what I'm be kindness. But volunteering, you can't say enough about volunteering, paying it forward. No, you can't say enough about that. That's what, that's where the human part comes in when people give back and they give their time and they put themselves out there to care with no connection, right? Nobody's directing them to do. They're just participating, giving back, and it's good to see, right? Because we all go through that phase where we have choices, right? You have a choice. You can sit there and complain every day, or you can get active and be a part of the solution, not complain and sit back, point the finger, be part of the problem. No. So when it comes to addiction, we need some serious kindness. And we need to be applying that kindness and that understanding because it is real. And these are substances that young people of all ages get involved in for one reason or another. And it's not easy. But when they get caught up in it, your heart breaks because it's for a number of reasons. But the truth is, these are substances that can change lives. So kindness to me is a really good remedy, and it will help you along your journey when you apply it, when you receive it and apply it. But just when you just accept kindness and you don't judge. Because one of the biggest things people are going through is when they feel the shame, the embarrassment. See, they're down on their luck or they're going through their changes and they have this problem that they have. And some of the biggest thing that stops them from recovering is the peer pressure and the lookers and the judgers and the finger pointers and the ones that got something to say on how strength and weakness should be distributed through this world. Like there's a book on it that applies to everyone. It doesn't. So the problem is we're too busy judging and the pressure is real. And so if you're going through your problems, when you fall down and you don't get back up the way people expect you to get back up, you got a road ahead of you, right? You know what I mean? There's no clean slate. You unless you have a caring, kind person that understands what it's like to care, what it's like to give, to be supportive, to be there for somebody you didn't even know probably 6 weeks ago, but you're showing your genuine care. And the reason why the counselor's talking this way, and I'll tell you straight up, is because I've worked in addiction detox centers. I've worked in the jails. You know, I participated in those areas. I've worked in the education. I've worked in the children's aid. I've worked in these places, and I don't need paper, but I got it to let you know one thing. These experiences I share with you. I think we always got to keep moving forward. We always got to push the agenda of care and democracy, and we can't forget where it's at. Right? We can't forget who we are as people, but we do because right there's so many things going on in the world, man. It's called greed. It's called greed, ignorance, and it's greed. But the point is, whatever it's called, a lot of us just got to stand up and say, look, we ain't going nowhere, and we have to figure out how we're going to get along. But I'm telling you, my experiences, I'm willing to share. I care. That's it. And that's what we should be doing. And start where we got to start. A lot of people are putting barriers in front of themselves, thinking they got to be certain ways. We put too many. Before we do positive things, a lot of us are putting barriers in front of ours. All these thoughts and doubts that go, no, acts of kindness and empathy and sympathy and caring and support, right? That's what makes it. That's what it's about. That's about caring about the next person. Whatever you get, you got to show some care. And that's where we got to get back to. We got to remember we want a democracy. We want that in this world. So we got to keep supporting each other. And even if it's through podcasts, helping each other, not just spreading the latest, greatest on those social media sites or those popular television shows, looking into the stars because we ain't got no life ourselves because we're going to sit there and watch how the K family's doing. You know what I mean? Which is represent most of us. So half these shows are just entertaining the young people. But I'm saying if they unplugged them shows in that media for a minute and we actually took a hold of what's really going on in the world, we might actually use ourselves to our fullest potential to do better realistically. We're not operating at our fullest potential as people. We're just not doing that. We got everything else operating for us, from communication, right, to electronics. That's doing the work. Half of us don't even know how it works. There's only a handful that do, but we rely on it heavily because it's the future. And I think it's a beautiful thing if we're using it to better ourselves, not to spy on each other, not to spread hate. See, this is the thing. You can have any tool that you want in your toolbox. But the question really is, are you going to use it for good? Or are you going to use it for bad? You know what I mean? And a lot of it depends on how maybe you've been treated in your life. You haven't been treated so well. And if you ask most people, a lot of them will say, "There's points in my life haven't been treated so well." And see, when they haven't been treated so well, what do? They need to know. They need a fixer. And it's not always the case either. You're not just addicted because you haven't been treated well. No, no. There's many, but like I'm saying is, when you think of substance use, you have to take the you out of substance use because you have to say it's not you anymore. That person has changed. The moment you take the sip, the smoke, the drink, the needle, the pill, you've changed. You've changed that dynamic. You've changed your body. You've changed your mindset, right? Everything we do to ourselves, we got to start realizing that it changes us. It changes our composition. Everything we make. See, when we talk about the pandemic, right? We have to talk about viruses. And we wonder, well, where were these viruses 100 years ago? Well, I will tell you something. I think we got a virus on our hands, and I think we can do something about it if we put our heads together. But it's not just about finding the vaccine. See, every country's racing to find a vaccine that'll get us to where we can breathe again properly and not pee our pants every time we see somebody with a mask on. You know what I mean? So we want to get back to some normalcy. But the truth of the matter is we haven't asked ourselves one question: how did this virus get there? What are we mixing, and what are we allowing these chemical companies and all these products to enter our water, and let our animals are entering the, like, we going so fast that we can't slow it down, even when we're given these signs to slow it down. See, this is a sign to slow it down. Actually start practicing what you preach. See, we talk every year about how this planet is dying and how we're killing it off, and we're not making changes because we're still focusing on the fastest car out there, or the next big house, or you know what I mean, or the rich. We're not focusing on the people. We should know what we're doing. And the thing is, it's not the virus that I'm concerned about, it's the way we're thinking. And the way we should be thinking is not just about the vaccine. Where did this thing come from? And why are we having this every few years? And when was the last time we've got scientists doing wonderful things out there? But when was the last time we cured half these things that need to be cured? Right? What's the formula? I know we could do a lot better, but we're not, because we got a few that are taking it up, taking down, profits, right? Not really looking for a cure. What do you need a cure for? There ain't no money in it. So what we got to do is we got to get our governments right. We got to fight for the democracy, and we got to figure out, look, we can't be going at it with different countries and different people. Sure, we got to stand up, and we understand that, but we got to work together and figure it out. So I'm just telling you, we haven't been doing a lot better when we could be doing a lot better. And that is one of the problems that we're having, is that we're not doing as well. We should be focusing on the solution of not just finding a quick fix, finding out why aren't we changing the way we need to change? Why aren't we adapting? Why do we have all these carbon burning gas and gasoline cars out there still in record numbers, when we knew over a decade, even almost 2 decades ago, that this thing's killing our planet? Our planet is dying faster than we ever thought. 1 degree makes a big difference. 1 degree makes a big difference, and it's making a big difference. And if we are honest with ourselves, right, we know one thing: like, all these forest fires they're increasing, and because we're breaking down the ozone. See, all these things, like I said, even when we think about addictions, right? There's something you got to even think about that when it comes to profit. We're in a democracy, and we see these kids dying off these opioid drugs and, you know, fentanyl and all that, and they're dying in record numbers. And why haven't we outlawed this stuff? Sure, I mean, output the law, but why isn't it priority that we're looking at where's the prescriptions come from? And I know a lot of them can make it, and I know some of it's been outlawed for sure, but I mean, it should be on the front table where we're attacking this thing for real and arresting in record numbers of people who, these young people are dying like crazy, you know, 30 in 1 month in Toronto. Just opioid cases, 30 in 1 month. And that's a lot. That's our young people. So what I'm saying is, where these things coming from? They're coming from some of these companies that the alcohol too. We're making money off the alcohol that's sold in the bar. Sure, people got to have certain things, but I'm just saying, we're getting to the point where we're making it accessible everywhere. And young people are getting at it. We're emulating the United States. We're not even thinking for ourselves. That's another disappointing thing. The States has their issues. I respect them. They got their fight. We got our fight too. Don't get that twisted. But I still think over here we got to be a little bit more open minded. I'm seeing things happening where police officers are attacking brothers even over here in Canada, getting away with it, getting charged, and the police are sitting up there talking about we want him to have no charges. Like, look it, we know the police are powerful, but when did the people become afraid of the protectors? We are the people, and we are watching this stuff go down, and people are not standing up and saying too much because I think they lost faith in the system. But we need to have leaders that say, wait, I see what you did. There is no way we're reversing. There's no way you're getting out. You actually used the system, and you were a part of the system. You swore an oath. And if anything, you were trained how to behave yourself. Not go on some why that's something you expect from a street person. But we're in this country, in Canada, we're lost too. I don't care what it is. I don't know why we're not standing up, but a lot of us are lost because why are we letting that garbage go down? Where they're just letting them out and just saying, hey, it's okay. And because you're police officers, oh yeah, we'll play you guilty, but then we'll show you that you're not real guilty because we'll let you out and walk around and smiling. Boys are smiling. See, this is the thing. When you do things like that, you don't know where it's going to go. And you know what? The problem is it goes nowhere if no one does anything about it. Right now, I'm saying the institutions that even exist in this country right here, they're not doing well. A lot of them don't. When you talk about all they do is put up these statistics about how racism is institutional and there's all kinds of racism all over, even in this country. Don't nobody do nothing about it. These companies, are not told to do anything about it because they don't care. If it ain't you, then you don't care. And I'm seeing it. There's a lot of companies out there, and there's people out there calling people out of their name. And just ridiculous. So Canada, honestly, it's almost shameful. It's really, we've gotten to a shameful point in this country where we really don't have any leadership. We don't. It's sad. And I got to be real. you know, it's really sad. The funny thing is we're going through a pandemic in Canada right now. And you know what's really scary is that we have billionaires, more no, I'm naming it, I don't care, taking money from like 41,000 to travel. These are politicians who are taking money that are meant for the community, and a $900 million contracts are being awarded to one agency while there's probably 2,000 agencies who need funding. However, this Trudeau government has decided that, you know what, we're going to do some good work here, but we're going to take care of our own too. And I'm saying, wait, you got yours, you took your position. Ain't no billionaires, and I'm saying ain't. They're not supposed to be taking money, even if it's 41,000 from the pot. And no one agency should be having $900 million to squander, or even if it did something good, it should not have that much power for that much money when it comes to taxpayer money. But I guess we don't know that's taxpayer money, and we don't really care. We just like a cute young person in the office that women love, you know what I mean? And he's a bad boy. Well, bad boy is in top of the. Listen, bad boy, there's one thing he needs to know. If you're gonna be a bad boy, you got to stand up, bad boy, even to Trump. And I know we could suffer for it, but we're gonna suffer anyway if we don't get some backbone. So what we got to do is say, listen, there's some changes that need to happen in this country, Canada, and when people start taking money and not trusting, and our First Nations are being disrespected, and when lawyers step up to the say this SNC Lavalin case that we got going down here is doing wrong, and we dismiss her because I guess we don't have the morals that we need to have in this country. So a lawyer sits up there, stands up, does what she's supposed to do, talks about the bribes, and we know bribes happen in business, but at the end of the day, we need business, but we got to learn how to get our business, and we got to probably reach down around the GTA town and look at these educated people that are driving cabs and start employing them so the ideas can make these organizations that we so desperately need. Not take the ones that are established that can manipulate us when they want, when they throw a dollar in front of our country. We are losing our morale and we're losing our pride. And that's why we're not sitting on that G7 seat. And see, the people here, they don't care. Like when you look at the political parties here in Canada, you got to say the and these are honest feelings. And the feeling to me is right is that the NDP, they're still doing their advocacy work, and I think that's great. The Trudeau government, I think there needs some real changes, or like someone's got to sit down and start giving it to us real, because we got to have representation. We can't have rule breakers and exception makers, right? The entitled, we can't have. We got to have some decency and some respect, and we got to put some work into some of these situations that we have in our country. We can't be having all this foolishness with all this homeless people not being able to find places to live. And when you do find places to live, uptown, midtown, people are complaining about them living there, but they're people that got ousted because of the virus. And so now, because they're stealing and doing things and breaking in and making things that, no, what makes the people uptown any better than the people downtown? People downtown are paying their taxes too. They have the same rights. But what's disturbing me is we're not talking about people anymore, right? Because we're saying, hey, get them out, put them somewhere else, not here. We don't want them problems. They don't exist here, right? We shouldn't have it. But there's some people who, bless their heart, they stand up and they say no. We got to change the situation, make it safer, whatever. But nobody should be telling anybody where to live, right? Nobody should do that. We could change it, we could work it out, but nobody should be pushing people out because they don't like what. Oh, sure, they got crime. Let's fix that. Let's work on that. Let's make it livable. Let's put things in place. But nobody should be doing that. And that's where government should be standing up and saying that. And they're doing it. They're putting people there. But we should be telling the community story. We respect what you're saying, but we will work on it. We will improve the situation. But we got to have what we got to have when we got to deal with people's lives, not their comfortability. So, anyways, I'm talking a lot, and I really believe that we have a long ways to go. And when it comes to these conservatives, all I see the conservatives, it's sad because they just oppose Trudeau. That's all they're doing. They're not coming up with any real plan. The focus is to focus on how can we dethrone Trudeau. And so now here we are with another conservative, or right, and Andrew's gone. Somebody else is stepping in, somebody we don't know, but I guess they know. But the point is, it doesn't really matter because conservatives haven't shown us anything. Fiscal spending, we got to get the money out to save our kids. We got to go after the government to what? Tell them to put some money down on our children? That's not right. We shouldn't be wheeling and dealing a week before we got to open. Don't set the date to open if you don't have the real plan in place. Not just push them together. See, this is the problem with the education system. The education system and the government aren't in tune. The government does not realize that we have to start putting some valuable resources in our education system. We're a million miles behind for a major city. We have so much talent out there. But if we don't take care of the kids in our education system, what's the future going to be like? Right? So we got to invest. And yes, they're doing a little bit better when it comes to but they're flopping all over the place. One minute they're like, let's pay for the university. Next minute they're pulling. Like, that's not fair to students. And see, this is what's so disappointing is that in this country, Canada, it's so unstable in 2020. When it comes to politics, when it comes to people, when it comes to resources, we are stuck and we got to get unstuck. And we got to prioritize what needs to be done in this country. And we have to start from the ground up. We have to get ourselves in order. We got some wonderful things at play. However, we need to put some work in because our leaders are just emulating the United States, that inner fighting. And then some are just going off. And as a prime minister, I get it, but he's got a job to do it. No one said it's easy. But that's the thing. We can't ignore that we have our um, partners to the south of us that three-quarters of the trade. We can't ignore that. See, that would be quite dismissive of me if I did not mention that. Yes, we are dealing with some great dining. It's not as easy as apple pie where I make, oh, everybody should do the right thing. No, I also have to acknowledge that the prime minister has to make some changes, and I think he could do that. I think he has some good intentions, but he's been sliding a little bit too often. And I think if he wants to make some changes for different benefits, then you got to vote through the people if you need more, right? But all the stuff where we're neglecting that, nah. The, no one says the job is easy. However, what we do need is we need to start improving our situation, and I think it comes with a new political party, and a new political party would really be formed. And what would happen is I think they'd have to start the new wave. And what the new wave would really do is it would actually start really hammering home some of the initiatives that we need to make the country better and the world better, and actually get ourselves in check. We need a party that can get this country working again. I mean, we've stopped on all fronts from our trade, not just because of the pandemic. We had some terrible problems, right? We had problems distributing our oil, our wheat, transportation. We had problems with the First Nations, and they're entitled to their land. Nobody said that, but it's not a problem in the sense is that we just our communication and respect is just not there. That we need to get that up again. We need to start talking and discussing and communicating and planning together. A little bit more integration with the schools and the community needs to come back in community development. We need to do a lot of these things. There's some wonderful things we can be doing. And we need a party that's actually going to make sure that these companies like GM and Ford and Tesla, they start working on transferring from the carbon based cars to maybe electric cars, right? So these are directions we need to go in. We need to have more efficient. We throw away tons of food and we waste so much as Canadians. We really do. You would be surprised that these Walmarts, all the things they throw away, and it's just such a sad state, right? So we need to get into that. We need to get into the recycle, reuse more and the less waste, right? Like these dollar stores are great. However, we all know it's not dollar store anymore, right? Go in there with $20, you come out spending 50. That's not good. The dollar store. We done saved our. We start buying junk, cheap junk that we throw away because we say it's cheap. See, and that stuff ends up in our oceans. See, no, we don't even got politicians that look at that stuff and say, "Look at okay, this is the counselor saying this," and I think Quebec had a wonderful system where they had the business sector, the government, and the social community sector. There were three levels to government that worked and they collaborate together. And I believe that as a country, we need to do that countrywide, where the communities, right, the business sector, and the government have to work together and plan and start working in a positive direction, not this inner fighting, disconnected system that we have. Are we getting money? Are we getting funding? Are we growing? Are we not? When we know we're growing and the people have needs and we know we're not giving them enough living conditions, proper living conditions, housing short, major city, it's garbage. And we don't have the right people in place. We're just band-aid situation right now. And it has nothing to do with pandemic. That's where Toronto's heading. And I think what we need to do is we need to get some more representation and people of color. And the reason why I say it is because we got to understand the whole problem. We got to start looking at everyone as resources in this country. When they're here, they need to contribute, and we need to expect them to contribute, and we need to accept their contributions. That's what we need to do to make this country better. Can't be one sided and a lack of assimilation going on where people are practicing some of the things that they practice back home, and we've got a lot of craziness going on. We've got to work together. And you know what? Honestly, when I look at this country here, I gotta say, there's some great things that are in this country. But times are changing and we have to change with it. And we got to do better with the planning. We also got to be more supportive of the people. I'm not really liking the government with this hands off where they don't take care of the people. When I hear of organizations like the Ministry of Transportation, people working there don't get benefits. From what I understand, it might have changed, but a lot of them aren't getting benefits. No, that's not acceptable. No, that's not acceptable. We should be that. No, that's not acceptable. We have to take care of people, right? And we have to look at all people and take care of them. We shouldn't be having these high expectations of putting up with people and then not taking care of them. No. And we got to do something about our cancer and our system that we have in place. And we got to plan better. We got to have better planners. We really do. The pandemic, we're doing because we shut down. But when we don't shut down, it'll go crazy again. So we need to have some better plans in place. We need to have some real. We should have a whole wing of our government. In addition to the social, the business, and the government, we should have the medical, right, the health division, and you know what I mean. All those should be working together so that we're taking care of all of our people. We should have seniors dying like we do, and then people, if they don't go, then it doesn't spread. That doesn't work. That's not a plan. We need to make sure we have facilities out there. We should be building them facilities out there in case we have this thing called a virus continuously coming at us, and we can handle and work on it. Not be in the middle of, downtown Toronto where we have our sickest people and our greatest advanced education down there where it could all be contaminated and gone in a bleep. It's not appropriate. So that's why I said the counselor man has so many ideas and they're realistic and they make sense, and it's just the way it is. And if you're paying attention, you can see all these changes that need to happen. And just loving what's going on in the sense that there are a lot of things, a lot of dynamics at play. And I think when you educate and you talk about them, then you realize that there's a lot of things that need some changing, right? But one thing we need to commit to is continuous commitment to learning. That's it. A continuous commitment to learning on everything that you can, learning and experience, but learning, learning about each other, learning to listen, learning to be patient, learning to love, learning to care, learning to be supportive, learning to step back sometimes, learning to step forward. This is important. Just learning, being observer, right? Think before we speak because it's hard to do because we're expected to respond when someone asks us a question, and if you don't respond in their time, then you know what? You're considered rude. Like there's all these little intricacies that are at play, you know. So it's really we need to learn some patience. We learn we need to learn to care, you know. We need to learn to care about people and to give a little bit of ourselves. And I really want to say that if we learn that one of our roles as human beings is to contribute to society in a positive manner, in a supportive manner, to contribute to society. That's where we should be. We should be trying to think of, what? Yeah, a lot of people say, well, we're trying to take care of ourselves. Yeah, and you can take care of yourself if you contribute to society in some way. Because you give, I believe when you give, you do receive. Maybe not when you want to receive, but at some point you might be receiving. But you don't just give to receive. You give because you know what? It's in you to give and you want to live your fullest life. And when you can, you do within reason. That's what it's all about. And see, we talked about a lot of things. See, the counselor, once he gets hyped up and heated up, he's talking real. And see, we can go from addictions, talking about all the different aspects of addiction. But when you look about it, the world, in the state that it's in, you go, wow, like if you sit back and observe, whether it's in the media or what people are talking about, there are real things going on that could concern a lot of people. And I think, like I said, this is a personal thing, is that sometimes when it gets to addiction through no fault of their own, people are going somewhere and they've changed, right? So they're trying to cope in some sort of way or to avoid. There's so many things and reasons why that could contribute to somebody having an addiction. There really are. But I'd just like to say that the world can be a challenge for a lot of people, and we do have to understand. A lot of us take, oh, stop your whining, stop your crying, right? But no, realistically, it can be really challenging. And some people go, well, you know what? Well, why are you complaining? What about people on the other side of the world? Yes, that's true. But people don't know what they don't know. And they don't care about what they don't feel that they can contribute to or control. So what they do is they wallow in theirs, and even when they think about it, it could be a lot deeper than that because there's so many reasons why people go into addictions. But we do have to look at the world and the space that we're in, and if you're one of those people that is a finger pointer And when I say kindness, it makes you cringe a little bit, is because maybe not even cringe, makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable because maybe you feel that no one's been kind to you. And it's true. Like when you talk to a lot of people, they'll say, "Oh, you know what? Why should I give? Why should I be kind to other people? Nobody's. I just mind my business." I've had bad experiences when I was kind to someone where they turned on me and it was just a bad feeling. And you know what? I just didn't do it again. Right? I've had colleagues that told me they've worked in certain placements, and when they've had to deal with clients and the clients were rude to them or not so nice to them, and even might have slapped them, and that's a form of abuse, of course. However, that's something that they said, what, they were given their acts of kindness and it made them angry and a little bitter. They didn't say nothing to the client, but they're like, it just irked them the wrong way and they just started hating it, and it was like, and I said, you know what, that's realistic. And no one says it's going to be easy all the time. Take what you can take. See, everybody thinks that there's just yes or no or black or white, or it's either minimum or it's maximum. No, that's not the case. The case is that you take what you can take and you give what you can give, and you appreciate what you appreciate. But it was different for them, and they just said, what, they felt like the kindness wasn't appreciated and it wasn't reciprocated. And I think that's where we go wrong sometimes, is yes, you have to have your self-respect, but sometimes people, if you can look behind it a little bit, some of them are hurting. Don't let them hurt you. No way. Just understand that some of them are going through their changes. As long as they ain't hitting you or hurting you, take some of it and take what you can take, right? There's no shame, no game. I'm just saying, having an open mind and understanding and appreciating, right? And doing what you can. A lot of people say you got to do it. You got to put up with a lot of food. No, you don't. You just got to be supportive and you got to be doing your role. And sometimes you're going to have certain situations where it's not going to be so pleasant when you're trying to be as kind as you can. Sometimes it will not be reciprocated. Think of professions where people do some kind work and it never gets reciprocated, right? Think about having, for example, a fire person, specifically a fire woman, and she's, you know, saving your life from you choking on a bone or something, or you fell from a window. But the point is that that person is doing a job and a responsibility. However, right there, it's, you know, their job, but that's just, no, that's half of it. The other half is they're caring people. They're going into a profession. They want to do what they want to do, and they want to do a good job at it, and they have good intentions, and that's where we really have to go with it, right? A lot of in everything, there's a few that give us the bad impression, but for the most part, a lot of people really want to do good work. But what I'm saying is that when they do it, a lot of us, we just expect it, right? No, some of us show our appreciation and wish we could. And if you have someone who's done something for you in your life, it doesn't matter if it was 10 years ago, if they saved somebody you love, or if they were looking after a loved one. This is a great time for you to reflect back, try and find that person, and get a hold of them and say, hey, thank you. Thank you for whatever you did that showed me that we actually are human beings and we care about each other genuinely without pay. We just care. And that made me feel so good. I want to be like, not just saying thank you. And if you can't go back and find those people, right? Then you know what you should do? You should take that experience and expand on it. Because that has happened to me where I've had someone help someone at my family who was really sick, and they were just there, and it was like, wow, they were so caring and comfortable. And it didn't matter. I wasn't looking at the color of their skin, so I try not to draw distinctions. I say what I say, but it doesn't matter. And that's the problem. When we point the finger at people, we do it with an understanding of our perspective. However, there are people out there doing good jobs for people, and they really care genuinely, and they're caring, and they're really putting their best foot forward. And you know what? When you're getting your help, you're not pointing a finger, but we're pointing. So let's not generalize, and let's be kind to other people. And somewhere along the line, it will be reciprocated. It just might not be when you want it to be. So please be kind to people who have addictions, and be patient and be understanding and take care of yourself. Well, we've had a very interesting session here. We started off with the addictions, the final version of my addictions, and we got into some real deep talk. And I think it needed to be said because these are things that we're dealing with. And it's just giving you people out there who aren't here a little taste of what's going on here. And it's quite interesting. So, be like the wise old bird and spread the word. And I want to say thank you to my listeners, okay? And take care of yourself. Thank you.